us today Tara and Tiffany from Wildan, who are going to talk us through the one item that's on the agenda, which is discussion of impact fees. And also welcome to our two guests in the audience and to JJ at the back, and the chief as well. At this time, I'll open citizens' public question and comment. If anybody has a wish to address town council on an item that's not on today's agenda, come forward, speak for 3 minutes. Seeing none, nobody online. One person online, no hand up. And I'll close public comment. We have no public hearing, no old business, new business, just discussion on impact fees. Town manager.
Yes, so this is our first workshop on this topic, although we've had some discussions and presentations on it. And I will turn it over to the team from Wildan to walk us through their notes.
Is there a handout or anything on this?
There's a 33-page PowerPoint, and it's going to be put up on the
Okay, so
screen.
there's nothing that you're giving us.
It was sent, but it was only sent last night. But
Yeah, I'm looking at the budget comments that were sent out at 11:47 PM.
no, there was the PowerPoint was sent on this as well, but it came out real late.
Thank you, Tara.
And you said you have the.
Yeah, John's pulling it up
Okay.
here in a second.
All right.
Not tardy.
Just for the record, if you need it, Tara Hollis, I'm a principal consultant with Wildan Financial Services. I have with me Tiffany Sturms. She's a senior analyst in our office, and our office is located in downtown Orlando. Although Tiffany lives out this way in Grove Hills. She's closer to you than I am. I don't know if you can, I don't know if you have it on your tablets. I can start with that if.
No, it was sent, the presentation was sent.
If you want to go ahead and while John's pulling it up, just because I know you're doing highlights at the beginning.
Basically, some of this information was information when we did our update a few weeks back. Basically, what I'm here today to do is to go through some of the numbers. We have gotten more information from the town. We have also gotten information now on that mobility fee. So we have some, this is really to kind of go through our analysis, where the numbers are coming out, and then the next steps forward. See if you all have any input, and I'm good either way. I'm good if you want me to talk about a fee and then you have questions, or we can wait to the end. So whatever works best for.
Do it as we go through.
Okay. All right. So basically, just to reiterate the background, can you hear me okay? Sorry.
Yeah.
I moved a little away from the microphone. Obviously projecting significant growth for the town in the next 10 years. Across Florida, a lot of the communities we're seeing that. So based on information that we were provided from the town, looking at potential developments that are coming in that you have commitments for, et cetera. We are looking at, you currently have, so we take from 2025 because that was the last reported numbers. You had approximately 2,157 residents. So that was your population for 2025. We're looking at a 10-year period, and we're looking at more than tripling that based on the current makeup of persons per household for both single family and multifamily. Most of your growth is going to be in single family. Your current persons per household is averaging out to about 2.42 persons per household. So using that same kind of multiplier, because we know how many homes are coming on, that's how we're looking at developing that population and residents. So we're looking at a projected increase in dwelling units of a little over 2,000 new dwelling units, so single family dwelling units in the next 10 years. And then as well as some multifamily units, but most of your growth is going to be single family homes. So multifamily is either like townhomes, multi-unit duplexes, those type of things would be what we would consider multifamily. And then also you have some increase that we're projecting in your commercial or non-residential. We know you have a shopping center that's coming online, but this would be in addition to that. So obviously, if you're adding more residents, there's potential for additional shopping complexes, office. We're not looking at as much growth in the industrial side because you currently have like that citrus plant, but we don't. We're projecting about another 112,000 square foot of growth on the non-residential side. Because the impact fees for non-residential is going to be applied as a per square footage basis, or so that's why we look at the square footage for that. And then what we've done is we've sat down with the town and discussed, and there are going to be capital improvements and additions that are going to be needed to accommodate this projected growth. That's what the impact fees are, is they help for growth to pay for growth. These are just kind of the next slide is kind of the basics again. What is an impact fee? It's a one-time charge. It's imposed at the building permit stage. It's on all development projects within a defined geographic area. So for most of your impact fees, it's going to be what's within the town limits. Technically, water and sewer can be outside the town limits because that could be imposed for your service area. But most all other impact fees are imposed based on the town limit area. And then funds funds facilities to serve the new developments and the new growth. And it is subject to Florida statute. So it's section 163.31801. So there are requirements in the statutes of what can be included in impact fees, how often they can be updated, how much they can be updated. And so it is subject to those provisions. Like I mentioned, sorry.
Can I interrupt you
Think
for
we're too
one
slow.
short question?
Mhm.
On the water and sewer impact fees that can be imposed within our service area, which is larger than our town boundaries. Are there any special requirements in the statute as far as getting permission from the county or doing anything different for, I'll give you an example. We've got a development at Drake Point. We have an annexation agreement with them. However, they're not currently in the town boundaries. We could charge water and sewer impact fees to that development, correct?
So yes, if you're running, if your lines are what's serving that. So I know for the sewer side, you buy your actual treatment capacity comes from the CDD. So for the sewer side, we're only looking at the collection line portion as being part of your impact fee right now.
And in that case, we also, it's an annexation and utility provisioning agreement. I mean, I guess theoretically.
We have to get a buyer leave from Lake County, for example.
Well, I guess the real question would be if all of the utilities are installed before the annexation happens and there's not a utility agreement to account for the impact fees, then they would not be paying the impact fees to the town if all the work were done prior to the annexation, unless we have an agreement, which in
Why
this
wouldn't
case we
their
do.
developer pay the impact fees
If
for
somebody,
their own development to bring them out to hook up?
no, but and in this case, it is going to happen because we have this agreement. But theoretically, if the town were to annex Bishopsgate, they would not be paying impact fees because they're already.
Oh, they're already
built.
there, right? But I'm
Right.
even thinking of Drake's Point. They're going to collect impact fees when that's developed.
Do we already provide the water for Bishopsgate?
We do not. That's in the CDD service area. That was given to the CDDs.
So if, to Tim's point, if they were to be annexed into the town, and we then took their water over, we supplied the water, why would they not pay that?
The CDD provides water to them now, do they not?
They do.
Okay.
They do.
And they also, we own the collection system from them now, but the CDD basically services them that bill.
We do the billing on an annual basis. It's a very odd half and half thing, but we do annual billing to Bishopsgate.
In the case of,
The point is, our annexation agreement provides that when they're eligible within 6 months, we should annex them, or they should apply for annexation. And that would have been no earlier than October of last year. Have we approached them since they are eligible for annexation to say, where is the request?
Yeah, I'll go back and review the timeline and the requirements on that with Drake Point.
with Drake Point, okay, so right now that's in Lake County unincorporated. So the developer comes in and builds. Who would those impact fees go to during that building?
So if you don't, if you're not
If we're
set up
not,
as a utility service provider at the time, it would go to whatever fees the utility service provider has. So if that's the CDD, if that's someone else. Now, if your
So if-
service area has been updated and your service area now includes that Drake Point area, and there's new buildings occurring.
There'll be no service provider at the time frame he's talking about.
so it would be a brand new
So it-
development, but we have a utilities agreement with them.
So because we have the utility agreement, then they are obliged to pay impact fees, which they would not otherwise be obliged to pay if they finished all their construction while they were under Lake County. They would just be liable.
I just think that it's
They do
important
if
that
County
we
has no
annex
no
them
utilities.
as quickly as possible to avoid any issues related to these fees.
Yeah. But if the county has no utilities,
Right.
then
How
they
would
can't
collect anything?
then they can't collect on anything. 'Cause
Well, they
have
don't have a
impact.
water impact fee, so they wouldn't collect anything for water, but neither would,
So
well,
how-
Yalaha Development wouldn't pay anything to the
so
town
how would
either.
they be able to build if they don't have any utilities?
Well, theoretically, it'd be like another Yalaha Development where they build their own little mini water system.
Package plans.
And that's on them, and they don't pay any water impact fees to anybody because, to your point, county doesn't collect them and they're not in the town at that point. So that's why we have that utility
Yeah,
agreement.
But we do have that utility agreement, so we should be able to collect them. And that's another reason it's important to have the wastewater fee. And I'm sorry for interrupting you.
You're good. And that's part of why we wanted to have this, is have that discussion so that as we're formalizing and finalizing our report, we make sure we've addressed all that in our fees.
John?
Did you have an?
Oh, no, I was,
Okay.
that was my inside voice.
She's-
Like, I was agreeing with
Are you
him.
I didn't catch it.
I was agreeing with you. That's a great point. Yes.
You were looking at me when you said.
You too.
And I think we're actually 2 slides up now. I forgot to tell you to switch to that. So this was the one thing I mentioned. So back in 2021, House Bill 337 put some restrictions on the impact fees and increasing the impact fees and adjusting them. So basically, it limits how much you can increase them in any given time period. So they can be updated and increased every 4 years. But you're limited if it's an existing fee. So this doesn't pertain to any new fees, but if you have any existing impact fees, if they go up and the increase is not more than 25%, then that gets implemented over a 2-year period. If it's 50%, up to 50%, that gets implemented over a typically year period, 4 time frame period, which they don't specifically say for the 4. They just say 4 equal installments. However, that's typically on an annual basis as well, is what most communities do. What it also does is it limits you unless there's an extraordinary need, which if you haven't updated your impact fees in the last 5 years, you can't claim the extraordinary need. So there is a way to go past the 50%, but you would have to claim that extraordinary need, which unfortunately the town doesn't qualify for its 2 current impact fees, or technically for the water as well. So for basic impact fee development, the next slide, this just kind of steps through what we do. We look at your existing facilities. We put a value on your existing facilities. So we bring those up to current value. We look at what future growth and future facilities. And then we kind of combine those. What we're looking at here is people buying into your current system, plus the additional projects that are needed because of the growth. And so we're going to look at the total number of residents that you'd have at the end of that time period. And that's how we're going to divide out what the impact fee should be. What we come up with first is what the maximum fee can be. Again, there's two that we have to bring down to that 50%. Once we come up with that, you can adopt anything up to that maximum. But we come through and then talk through the implementation strategy, as well as prepare the impact fee report, which is going to be the next step. And then we're going to come back, present that report, you adopt that report, and then we have 2 public hearings for you to adopt the impact fee ordinance. Next
Public
slide.
hearing and the ordinance can be done at those at the same time.
So they can be, you can adopt the report at the same meeting you read the ordinance for the first time. You would just have to close the meeting after you adopt the report, then you open it back and do the next item, or they can be at separate meetings.
How long after the second public hearing for the ordinance do they come into effect?
So it's a minimum of 90 days after the second reading of the ordinance. So right now, what we have everything, I'm going to show you, right now we're just saying January 1st as an implementation date. Obviously, if we read the second reading of the ordinance before then you could make that sooner. So let's say you did both meetings in August, then technically you could implement them December 1st.
So that's the earliest we can implement, December.
Oh, December's, yeah, likely if you did
Potentially,
the
yes.
readings in August, you'd have September, October, November.
Maybe
December.
the middle of November, depending on the timing of when we read the 2 ordinance readings, and if you continue those, but let's say it goes through in 2 meetings. The earliest would probably be the middle of November, depending on if we hit the next 2, the second July meeting and the first August meeting. But right now, that's kind of what's limiting you is you know, if you want to do the public hearing the same time you do the first reading of the ordinance, you could potentially be the middle of November. But
Is
right
there
now,
any-
what I
is
have
there-
here is just assuming January 1st.
Is there anything that's pushing us towards the earlier? I mean, I think we should target January 1 for,
They're already built, they're already starting. They're gonna start, as soon as the permit comes in, impact fee.
They've got 6 being built at the moment, and I think we're getting like 10.
who is
Yeah,
who is they?
Hillside Groves,
Hillside Grove.
yeah. You want to get this, I mean, every extra couple of weeks helps, so there's no
Okay.
sense artificially delaying.
So they are,
That's what-
because I drive by there almost every day and I haven't seen anything going vertical yet.
Well, the amenity center is pretty much done. I didn't see the houses yet, but
There is a house going vertical that is on the back. Yeah, there's a couple of them. Yeah. I've been driving through.
Spread out a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but everyone that goes up there, we're
yeah,
effectively missing.
oh, yeah.
Not just on the water, which is the critical thing because of the loan, but also on all of the
Right.
other ones as well.
Yeah, the sooner the better.
So have they pulled any permits?
Oh,
Yeah.
They would have to, right?
Yeah, they can't build.
A handful, or I think a dozen or so, there's somewhere in that neighborhood.
Cause think
Okay.
about it, if it's anything like the way Venezia built out, there were certain sections that were open that individuals were able to pick their lots and it didn't have to be next to each other. They were on each side of you remember that because we were all the way on the other side of Calabria when there was almost no one there. So I think they're building it out pretty much similar. And I think that the sooner we get this going and is the better. Is
So there is some urgency.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I think we should. That way, if there's any adjustments that need to be made, it gives us time to do those things.
I guess with the water impact fee is already in place, so we've already been charging them, presumably.
Yeah, remember, we're not, after analysis that was determined,
We
it was
won't
not
increase.
worthwhile to
Right.
adjust it.
So
Right.
it's still gonna be that we should miss out on that. And
Right.
presumably the parks and recs and the police impact fees, they're already in place.
Well, they're already in place. It'll be adjusted.
Yeah,
based
we'll
on this.
just get less than we would if this were through.
Correct.
But we're not missing out on.
No, no.
But we would be on wastewater and any other new one that we're
Correct.
establishing.
Wastewater, yeah.
So the cost allocation methods is what I mentioned. Sometimes when you have growth like this, we look at, you're not gonna have to build new facilities, so you just look at existing facilities, because the growth doesn't necessitate new facilities. So that's when we use kind of an existing inventory method, how much it costs per capita, and then apply that to the new growth. The second logic is all the planned facilities are handling the new, they're not really going to share in the existing facilities. So we look at just how many new customers are coming on, what the planned facilities are for those new customers, divide it out and look at that type of an approach. But what we're looking at here is really the new growth is going to share in some of the existing facilities as well as necessitate additional facilities being built. So when we do that, we have to cost out the existing facilities as well as the planned growth facilities, and then look at the total population at that time. So that's what we're doing here. We're looking at existing plus planned, and then we're going to divide that out by the total population that we anticipate at the end of this time period. So next slide. So the impact fees that we've considered, we're looking at 4 non-utility impact fees. So those are municipal facilities. So that incorporates your town hall, if you build a community center, library, although a portion of your library comes from the county, but there is a portion that you are also, the town is responsible for. So that's what we're looking at in the municipal facility impact fee. Police, like you mentioned, is going to be the police facilities. So anything that you own, or the potential unit portion that they're going to be in part of the municipal complex if you build that, as well as we can look at major capital. So not uniforms, but you can consider, you have to invest in radios, you have to invest in service revolvers, those type of, bulletproof vests, not their day-to-day uniform, but those type of things, as well as you have to buy additional vehicles for additional police. So that's what is in the police impact fee. Parks and Rec is anything that's park and rec related. So you have your land, you have the different assets that you have at the parks, if you have bathrooms, if you have, basketball courts, any of that type of thing, the boat ramps, the boat docks, those type of things that would be part of your Parks and Rec impact fee. And then the mobility is typically anything that gets you around. So bike paths, sidewalks, if you have hiking trails, as well as streets, although a good portion of your streets, those, and when I say streets, it's the main thoroughfare streets. So those would be part of your impact fee. However, a lot of that street portion does come from FDOT or other sources. So again, anything that would be coming from another source or being paid by another source, like gas tax revenue, those type of things would not be included in the impact fee. And then for the utility, you have the water, which is an existing impact fee. And while the wastewater, it's normally impact fee looks at both the treatment and the collection or transmission back to the treatment plant, because you contract out, or basically you don't provide the treatment. You've purchased that capacity from the CDD. This is only going to include that collection system that the town has installed to recover.
We have another study group right now that's looking at the wastewater treatment program. If, at what point would we consider increasing it from just collection to both collection and treatment based on a future acquisition of the treatment if that were to occur?
Or would that only apply once we have the plant?
It would apply once you have
We
actually.
would have to
acquire the
own it
treatment.
first, and then we would have to go in for a modification.
Yes.
Okay.
Would those increased percentages impact that in any way? The one on your prior chart where it had if it was less than 25%,
Right.
it would be 2 years. If it was less than 50, it would be 4 years. And because I could see the impact fee doubling or more, if we were to acquire the, treatment system. So my concern is there any urgency to the acquiring? I don't know if I'm wording this politically correctly enough for the folks, but if we were to acquire it at some point in the future, what is the urgency of establishing it? And can we exceed the 25 and 50% thresholds in a case like that?
So I'm not an attorney, but I would say the two thoughts we have on this is one, as we're establishing this, we want to make it clear throughout your ordinance and everywhere that this is strictly a wastewater impact fee for the collection system. So one, if you would add a treatment component, that typically would fall outside of that. However, you do have the provision for the extenuating extraordinary circumstance demonstrated need. Obviously, acquiring a plant that you didn't have before could be used as a demonstrated, where we could prove a demonstrated need, extenuating different circumstances that therefore, again, following the provisions of that demonstrated need capacity. So there would have, or studied, which would mean you'd have to have a 2/3 majority vote from the council to accept that study. You could go beyond that 50%, and also you could implement it faster.
But basically what we're looking at is at some point, what is the SEAC fee that goes
Right.
to the CDD would be replaced by
Right, with the,
an
An
impact
impact
fee
fee,
when the
right.
town was if and when the town's in the
Right.
position to.
Currently, the SEAC fee that they charge is $5,250 per unit.
Soon to be six.
And they're in the process of considering increasing that,
Mhm.
okay? And prior to the 5,250, it was 4,250. And that was just a year ago or so
yeah,
that they
about
adopted
12
the
months prior,
4,250.
correct.
What was it prior to the 4,250?
It's been 4,250 for quite some time.
Okay.
I mean, there was no capacity available, right, since the initial agreements were signed. So I think even when there was a little bit with Clark, I think it was at the 4,250, if I remember correctly.
What if the CDD, based on incoming population, needed to increase their capacity? Could we have an impact fee for that would go for that increase in capacity?
If we had to pay for the increase. If we had to pay for the increases.
Well, whomever, either them or us. I
But
mean,
if-
somebody would
if
have
the
to pay for it.
CDD, if the CDD is managing it, and then they would be the ones collecting the appropriate fee, and they'd be paying for the expansion, and that would
but-
pass through the
We
town.
don't collect that money currently, do we? It goes
It's a-
straight, do
Yeah,
but-
we collect it and pass it to them?
But that's a SEAC fee.
Yeah,
Could
but-
we have an impact
I know,
fee?
I'm with Tim here. If we have to pay to expand the system, should we then be able to collect?
We
an
should
impact
be
fee
able to collect an
cover that?
impact fee for that.
so you're saying you would own a portion of that, so they wouldn't be increasing their SEAC fee for that portion because you as
Well,
town
somebody-
paid in.
The way I'm looking at it, if that scenario would play out, someone is gonna have to pay for that increase
Right.
in capacity. Obviously, they're not gonna want to do that.
There's a provision in our existing contract with them for us to pay them to increase their capacity in very large blocks
Mhm.
at a time. Is it 750,000?
1,700.
So could we charge an
17,
impact
1740.
fee to do that?
Do,
Yeah, I don't think you can charge you can't double charge, basically.
Right.
Yeah, but a SEAC fee is gonna be less than an impact fee.
So I mean, if you collected basically SEAC fee plus $1,000 and then you paid the SEAC fee for them, theoretically,
But if we pay to upgrade the system,
Right.
what I think Tim is saying is the SEAC fees that are going to connect to that upgraded part shouldn't go to the CDD. They should.
It should go to us. And
And
maybe as an impact.
And we're
fee
gonna
so
have,
that-
yeah,
so that
but
we
we're gonna
could
have
get
to use
matched
that to
maximum.
pay them to expand the capacity on their land.
Correct.
So we're putting our money into improving
Correct.
their land.
Yeah, I don't
That's
think
right.
we're ever-
That's why it would be best if we owned it.
Well, you can do
Yeah.
a lot of things contractually.
Exactly.
Yeah, but when you
If
got
that's
up to
even
blocks of 17.
a possibility.
Well, everything's negotiable.
you would have to look at it at the time. There may be other ways that we can add an additional fee to those new customers. And so that they would.
I just wanted you to be aware
Okay.
that particular one is unique amongst all of the ones that we have because we have not yet decided where we're going to go on it. If we have the option of continuing to obtain our collection, our treatment through the privately owned company and or we can acquire their plant and then make it part of our facility. We haven't decided which way to go on that, but we are having a company study that right now. And when are they going to be making their presentation?
But listen, David, you know, the pushback that we get on them selling, that is like, that's not like
Hey,
but I mean, the study is fine.
the study gives an argument to say this is a real valid outside number. That's a point of discussion.
But what it sounds like, even if we would decide to hook up with Groveland, let's say, we're not going to be able to get an impact fee for that. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. If we can't get it
Yeah.
for the other, you're not going to be able to get it for.
if we're not providing the service, then why should we?
Yeah, you get enough for lift stations and collection lines, and
Well,
that's
big.
To go and Groveland, Tim, more from what I recall from the Wood and Kerr report,
It
was more money than.
Oh, absolutely it was.
By the CDD. If
Sure.
it goes to Groveland, you still don't own it.
That's right.
So
That's
I
right.
don't think Groveland's even.
Well, in my mind, it's not, but I'm just using that as an example.
I personally think our choice is we already have an avenue paved for us in the existing agreement with the CDD.
Mhm.
The choice of going to Groveland is not a viable choice. It's too expensive.
very expensive and
But the two viable alternatives, one is to continue with what we're doing now. We would have to, beyond what we've allocated already, we will have used up 100% of their capacity.
right.
So if anything else of any size whatsoever is built in this town, we would have to expand the size of their plant.
Or they put their own plant into it.
Yes. But the agreement we have with them that was signed about 2 years ago, roughly, actually January of last year. And the agreement we have with them provides an alternative in dealing with them, which is that we would pay them to expand their plant and we would continue the existing agreement from an operational standpoint. They would just have a larger plant and that larger plant would be on land that is owned by them. So we would be building a capital asset and placing it on their land. So they would, so they would own it. That's one alternative. The other alternative is for us to obtain the treatment capacity in the house. And then we would have to deal with the impact fee in that case. In the first case, we would just serve as a pass-through for their CIAC like we do currently. So the only way we would be doing a wastewater impact fee for the treatment would be if we owned and were providing the treatment. But right now, we don't own it, we're not providing it. So we can only do it on the collection system, not the treatment
Is
system.
that the way you see it?
Right, yes.
So even though we would be doing something new because it's not non-existent and your town needs that, we could not do it. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, basically, we can't go ahead and preemptively charge for a service that people are already being charged by.
So they may not get it, is my point.
Wait,
They may not what?
how so?
How are you going to provide sewer if this facility is at capacity? You're either going to have to pay for it out of your own pocket, and I'm saying I don't understand why impact fees couldn't cover it.
You to make impact fees to cover the expansion.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, right, but if we're talking about a development that hasn't come
If-
forward yet for approvals.
If you were to build a second plant on land that we owned, then the answer is yes. But if we continue to provide it to their treatment plant and expand their treatment plant, the answer is no.
But
Is
also,
that the way you see it? That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
David.
But there's other fees that you could look to put in place, like a capacity reservation fee or other types of
So
fees.
there's other
for-
ways we may be able to raise some money to help.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That potentially you would maybe do just on those new customers. Like you
Right,
said, if you had to, you, the town, were responsible for building or helping fund that additional
Yes.
capacity to recover that money. There are other
okay.
steps you could put in place, but that may not be an impact fee. Like I said, you could
Okay.
potentially do
It
a
would be a way
reservation
to
fee.
obtain money to help pay.
Yes, because
Okay,
a lot of times we'll see
Right.
like a capacity reservation fee where
Yeah.
you have them pay you back the residents over a 5-year period or certain.
But the owners of the
period.
private company have said in the past, who happen to have the CDD, they control it 100%, is they don't want to invest the money. They invested the money for the original plant, and it's just now 18 years later. They built that plant in 2008. It's just in the last year or so that they've been recouping their investment. So they're kind of hinky on them wanting to invest for the next increment of
They want
expansion.
money on the barrel. They want to see it.
Yeah, they would. Well, that's why the contract that we did January of last year was written the way it was written, because they had no interest in further investment, because they tied up their capital for 18 years and they're just now getting a return on that capital.
we are also not in a position, if we were to build our own plant, to transfer the existing 1,600 across, and what was it, for 40 years or something?
Yeah.
Well, and all the previously existing customers on top of that.
see,
So you-
my point to her, what I was trying to make is essentially, if we don't have the money to increase their capacity and they're not going to do it, you're going to have developments that come in and aren't going to be able to get sewer. In essence, they can't build.
Correct.
So that's what I'm getting at. You're gonna
agree to go ahead and pay for the expansion.
exactly. And if they say no,
Well,
then what are you
then
gonna
they
do?
don't,
And
then they
that's
don't
my-
develop.
And that's right. That's what my point to her is.
But any new subdivision that was to come in, they could also put in a package plant for themselves as well.
If it would be approved.
If it would be approved, or you get something like Cedar Creek where it's barely 100 then
That-
they are
Yeah,
using.
that was an
distribute it.
option we looked at 2 or 3 years ago. Do we want to have little
That was a-
package plants all over the
Not
town?
ideally, no.
I don't know, I mean,
Well, the next council
To-
have a
to
lot of
park,
big
they have
decisions to
100%
make in the
to
next
park.
3 to 5 years.
it depends how
That's
big
for sure.
the subdivision is.
And so, but you answered my question. So there are other fees that
There are
could be,
other ways you
could be
could.
pursued. Thank you.
Mm.
Once again, I apologize for
Okay.
interrupting because I knew this would break into a large.
We only have
discussion.
73 no, I'm joking.
Some of this, I think some of this stuff was on, you did this at the
Yeah.
last time you presented as well.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
we're
she's,
still not quite to the numbers yet, so we're getting
yeah,
there.
we're getting the numbers was what was added.
And I may ask in a little bit, I did something to my back this weekend, so I may ask if we get closer to that 2 hour mark, if I can sit down for a minute or do this thing.
Bring a chair.
Yeah, just one of these up here. Is that okay? I apologize. I didn't all of a sudden.
Oh, here's a chair.
Yeah, you can come over and sit down.
Or yeah, you sit.
Why don't you just sit here?
Yeah.
Sit on the
Sorry.
comfortable chair.
So we can make 2 hours standing.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
What you're doing, that this is happening.
No, you're good.
Let her finish her presentation.
And she's good now. She's in a comfortable chair.
Yeah,
Just don't lean back.
Yeah.
But I haven't had enough leave this morning.
Oh, no worries, you're fine.
All right, so now I'm over here. Y'all can see me.
Yeah,
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
yeah, no worries.
All right, so
Tell me.
next slide. Sorry. Again, these are just the local data sources. We went over this before, so we'll kind of go through quickly. Just obviously your existing population. We have multiple sources. We obtain that from, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We get it from the University of Florida has good information, especially for the state. The Bureau of Economic and Business Research, it's called BEBR. And we also use, so the census puts together and has a site that's the American Community Survey. And that pulls information on population as well as housing units. The existing jobs, there's a site that's also done by the census, which is called On the Map. Unfortunately, they're a couple years behind, so the most recent is 2023, but what that does is gives us a breakdown of the different industries within the town limits, what type of workers you have, and we use that to calculate some of the information for the non-residential units and the non-residential square footage. We use growth projections, that's discussions with the town that was looking at some of the developments that you had already had coming on. It's talking with your planning department, et cetera, to get that information. Occupant densities, again, are we use the ACS, which has houses, people divided out to say, okay, single family, that's where we came up with the 2.42 persons per household. And I think it's 1.74 for multifamily. And then we also use the traffic manual that gives us information on typical numbers of employees per square footage for different types of buildings and commercial, non-residential type. So we can look at, shopping centers. We can look at, if you had a lot of schools here, we could look at that to see approximately how many.
We don't
We're
have
good.
any schools
Right,
yet,
right,
but
yeah.
hopefully we can get one.
Yeah,
even
so,
if it's a-
but those different office buildings, I'm just saying, if you had a hospital or those things, there's different typical number, they do a whole nationwide survey and study, which we also use for streets too, because that tells you how many trips you would get for different things, as well as typically how many workers per square foot. And then existing facility inventory that was provided by the town. So you provided your asset listing. What we do there is we have to bring it up to today's costs. So we basically develop a replacement cost new, less depreciation, because obviously it's not a brand new asset. And then your future infrastructure costs, that's what was provided in your CIP. And then for the mobility, we just got some information from the town's engineer that provided us some information on planned and existing sidewalks and the trails. So, and we also mentioned last time, you currently charge residential for the two fees that you have, police and Parks and Rec, based on square footage. That's not a typical methodology. Most communities use persons per household or look at a dwelling unit. So our recommendations are that you move to that for your residential, both single family and multifamily. And we developed that based on those densities that we talked about. So that kind of gets us
And
through.
I'll just make a little note on that too. We ran into some kerfuffle about a year ago with someone doing a major expansion on their house and whether that triggered new impact fees because they were adding square footage, and changing the methodology just avoids that whole
Right.
question.
And typically a house, you could have a 2,000 square foot house and a 3,000 square foot house, and you may have the same number of people living in it. So they're not doing much more of a draw on the police or the Parks and Rec, because they still have an average of 2.5, 2.42 people living in there. So really, with the impact that it has on your facilities and your facilities costs, that's not typical a square footage. It's typical a dwelling unit. You could have, I mean, again, you could have 5 people in a 1,000 square foot house too. I mean, so really that's what's causing the draw is the dwelling unit
Well, that's tight.
versus the square footage.
5 people.
Right, because if you have a 3,000 or a 1,000,
Mhm.
they would be paying significantly different, but they
Yeah.
potentially have the same impact
Understood.
on your facilities. So we are to slide 12. Right there, sorry. So again, we went through your CIP and identified with the town major planned facilities. So we're including that in the planned facilities costs. There's things like a library expansion. Again, a portion of that was included, a portion was excluded, assuming that you typically get grant money or money from the county for that. So we included a portion of that, as well as you're looking at building a municipal complex that would house both your town administration as well as your police department and other departments for the town. We looked at also, you mentioned potentially building a community center. So that was what we have in our municipal facilities. Those are our planned facilities that are included in there.
Hey,
Police,
I hate to interrupt you again, but we're also gonna need to build a public works facility, and you don't have that on there. And I don't think we're gonna have the garbage trucks and dump trucks parking out in the municipal facility complex. It
Well, but
would be,
we don't have that on the CIP currently, so it's.
Looking in garbage trucks?
No.
Oh,
This is something that Councilor Miles has advocated for. But I think, and we'll get to this point when in 4 years, you should be doing a revision of this. We have a 5-year CIP. 4 years or so, you should be reviewing your impact fees. So probably at that point, I don't think we'll be building that facility.
you're gonna need a facility for them. They've got in the budget this year, another truck.
right, so at the time you decide, does that come from a portion from impact fees?
It's
Do you do a
coming.
separate impact fee?
Sooner than you'd think.
So like for that type, you could do a separate sanitation, and but the problem is if it's mostly gonna be serving existing,
we're not having sanitation
okay.
here.
The new truck, if it's approved, is a pressure washer.
Okay.
So-
All right. So you would have to see how it would fit in at that time, if it makes sense, if it's really, if you're adding it primarily to serve your existing, if it's not as much growth related, you could potentially include a portion of that. But then partially would be for existing. You have to look at how you were gonna fund it at the time. So is it gonna come from it solely from impact fees? Are you gonna look at?
Additionally, there will need to
Yes.
be some addition or
Yeah.
separate building done.
Yes.
Well, they
And so like you
definitely
said,
need it.
yeah, if that's not in this next 4 years, but you want to start planning for
But,
that,
mm,
our recommendation is going to
100%.
be, because of the limitations moving forward, that you make sure you're at least looking at these every 4 years. You don't wait, so you update them.
But and
You don't need to
projects-
update them in 4 years, but the same thing, even construction costs are going up and everything. So the good and the bad about the statute is it is forcing you to make sure you're addressing them on a regular basis, or you get penalized for not addressing them on a regular basis. So that they're kind of, in a good way, they're forcing you to start doing that. The bad thing was you're limited because you didn't do some of yours, the two of them that you had.
I was just advancing,
Frequently.
should we have, for purposes of developing this, a public works facility added to the list? Right now, we don't have it on that list. That's what I was throwing that out for.
So we want to go back and add this to the CIP.
And I'm about to say, we've got CIP review coming up, and yes, we need to get that marker in the CIP along with, I think, beginning to look at how do we take this municipal complex and turn it into a reality. It won't be anytime soon.
At least
but
begin the process of planning it.
Yes.
Yes.
I think, is it going to cost us to put it on the list?
No.
To just, you can add anything. you
Oh,
want to the
okay.
list.
Okay.
But I mean,
At the time,
we did just
I need
say-
something from you saying that
Well,
we're
right,
looking at doing it.
it's just-
Not- I think
it's
that
not
thing
sure.
another-
Definitely do that, because that
and I think
municipal
also for the
complex.
CIP, we need also look at some of the areas that we would like to develop or capabilities would like to develop, especially down along the lakefront, and begin to look at what are the things that make a town a nice place to live. You know, Tim has mentioned before about having a place, a band shell, a playhouse or something down in that area where people
Definitely,
are
I think that
naturally
we need
drawn
to go
there,
on
and
the
it's a
waterfront.
good venue for having entertainment, outdoor entertainment for folks. And I
But
think
yeah,
I
but we
think that's
need
how
to
we
be
need to
like-
begin to look at this.
You know, we
Not
don't
so much
want
as
it to be
a
a spoil.
maybe a wish
We want
list,
it
but
to
as
be-
these are the things we want to do in the future. And so if we want this kind of capability, then what do we need to begin to invest in to make that happen? Realizing it's not going to happen all at once unless Elon Musk moves into Howey-in-the-Hills. So I think along those lines, David put the marker on the table last year about that. This year, I think we're a little bit better financially where we can begin to think about, can we fund some money for it? But we also need to look at some other ideas. And Tim's put some ideas on the table about a quality of life thing for living in the town. It's not just, it can't be just how many rooftops we have and that'll attract businesses, but also what's the quality of the life going to be for all those people living in there, and the houses we think are going to have 2.7 people in them or whatever, that demographic is going to go away because Howie's beginning to attract a lot of people who don't want to live in expensive parts of Orange County. They want a less expensive but also a less harried lifestyle where they can relax summer evenings, where they can actually relax on the weekends because quality of life is there. And so I think we have to look at both of them as not just a rooftops and businesses, but also what's going to make, and we live here too, what's going to make the quality of life better. Venetia just had that discussion at their last HOA about
We
items
just,
like that.
and
And so I think along that line, and then we need to begin to think, well, if we want all these nice things around, you have to maintain them. To maintain them, you have to have public works.
Right.
Public works means we really do need to have a public works facility, yard, whatever, where they know that as because they're going to keep acquiring vehicles as they expand and grow, that we have an idea of what does that growth really mean. And I think we're far enough along now. A lot of us understand, the folks in the town clearly understand the urgency, or I should say the need to continue efforts for developing commercial. I think now's probably a pretty good time to begin talking about what are quality of life enhancements that we can begin to add. Might not be necessary this year, next year, but probably the year
But it's a
after
good
that.
thing to start planning, so.
Well, and the big part about the planning is what is it going to cost? And then as she's making this presentation, how are we going to fund that short of having fundraisers?
And I like the idea of the planning too, and for us to put it on paper, because it also gives an excellent blueprint for the next councils that will come along. I think that it is always good to put things in place for the time when we're not serving, but at the same time giving a wonderful blueprint of forward thinking for the future. And so with that being said, you said you need something in writing to say to add it.
So
add the-
I think the question is, do you feel if we add, because ultimately we are going to need more facilities.
Right.
Do you feel if we add these, that we have a good chance of getting the impact fee amounts that we need? I think that's the question.
For the new impact fees, there's really no limit.
Right, that's what we're
Existing
talking
impact
about.
Yeah, I mean, the
fees.
philosophy is those, you almost want to try to get what you can in them now because you're going to be limited going forward
Right.
unless you
Yeah.
can do a demonstrated need. So
Where did it,
yes, the,
what
So,
we put in place
so
this
we should
year
increase them now.
change until
For
2030.
4 years and at least.
She said that, David.
Yeah, we gotta get that in.
So, yeah, if-
So what is your feeling?
if this growth is going to cause that need for public works to have an additional, then I would say we could look at adding it.
10,000 people,
and
that
putting-
makes 10,000 people.
But
Yeah.
but it's also a question of categorization. So you could say a public works facility could go under the administrative side of things, which is a new fee, which really has no limit at this moment in time. But if we're talking about let's build the band shell, whatever, what do you call those band shells and things like that down along the waterfront, that's Parks and Rec,
Mhm.
and we are already bumping up against the maximum on
Yes,
Parks
you
and Rec
already
as
are.
an existing fee.
Yes.
We're already kind of hitting the threshold. Not to say we can't add it to the CIP and look for alternate funding and all that kind of thing, but existing fees, as Tara's pointed out, have a built-in max. New fees, I don't want to say sky's the limit, but sky's the limit.
And they have the built-in max unless we can show now that you are updating them, if we can show you meet the extraordinary demonstrated need in the next round going forward, then you could potentially exceed that 50%, depending on, because there's another House bill out that may or may not make that a little more restrictive too and limit you to the 100% increase. I think that hasn't had final approval yet. But yes, by updating them now, there's the potential that you could go above the 50% in the next 4 year time frame if we can show a demonstrated need. Like you had so much growth, it necessitated this band shall be, to provide, continue to provide the level of service that we've been providing a town now and to continue that into the future, we would need these projects to be funded
So here's
through impact fees.
here's a thought, because we still haven't gotten to the current proposed dollar amounts with the current existing CIP. So it might be worthwhile to get to that point and then at the end of the meeting, confirm with Tara if there's a consensus to add particular projects to
Okay.
the CIP. Does that make
sounds fair.
sense?
I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
let's gotta realize that if we use just the numbers of it, we're looking at a fourfold increase in the population of the town.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
In a really short amount of time. And if you go and dig up all the stats, it'll show you the quite frankly, the phenomenal growth Howie has undergone. We're in a bit of a lull right now, but it's about to resume. Look what's happened with Mineola. I can remember when you used to be able to go through Mineola, and if you blinked, you missed it.
Yeah.
They have a lot more land than we have.
But they do, but they also,
I mean, we're gonna
but they
be
grow
limited
so
by our
big,
land.
so fast.
Yeah.
And when you said fourfold increase, I thought you were going to say fourfold increase in impact fees, and it's
Oh, that would be nice.
well, it's more than that. So we'll get
Yeah,
there. We'll get there.
All right, keep going. So just like you said, the projects we have included police, we have the municipal, a portion of the municipal complex as well as additional vehicles. And like I said, there's major equipment that would be needed for additional officers coming online. I think we had built in, based on the population, 15 additional officers and vehicles and equipment associated with them. For parks, there was a whole list like this that you'll see in the report of all the park upgrades and additions. But there's various upgrades and improvements, as well as there was some additional land purchases needed in there to continue to provide that level of service that you've been providing to your current residents. For the mobility, we have trails and sidewalks. Those are your
That's
major
what I
improvements.
didn't hear, didn't
You
get
said
that.
you're gonna buy land in order to create parks.
That's certainly always a possibility.
I think there was
Mhm.
some additional parkland included in the list, the asset list that we had,
Why would we?
or the proposed facility
Yeah.
list.
Park to be kind of introduced.
We already have some land that needs to be developed,
Right, and to have the parks added
Right.
to them.
but we don't need to buy that piece of
Well,
land.
but so for example, even if you, and I'm not even proposing this, I'm just throwing this out there as an example. But we have that 8, 9 acres that we don't really have a purpose. Police impact piece.
No,
paid
I
for it.
wouldn't, I
So-
wouldn't turn that into a park.
But my point is, whoever
Facility.
is gonna have to pay back police
Municipal
impact fees
complex.
and pay out of their impact fees. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, if it was parks, well, that's a land acquisition, even though it's our land already, but we'd have to sell it from one. The police would sell it to the parks, and that's.
I'll check that, because that was on, I know I
Yeah,
believe that was on the listing that we had of some of the updates, so I'll confirm that.
How many ballparks do we have in this town?
oh, I agree with you there. But unfortunately, because of all the development, we're kind of limited to the amount of land we have too.
Yeah, but if we get the developers like we did, granted the CDD to Lake Hills, they're putting in a 4 acre park, which they're gonna maintain.
Yeah, but when you drive by there, it's not big enough for a ballpark.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I get you. I think that would be
Mhm.
wonderful. I just don't know where the land would be.
But Venezia sits where the old ballpark used to be and the rodeo stadium and the airport. And to Tim's point, like you said there, we've now had houses built in those areas that have been used in the past,
And we
so
haven't asked any of those developers to provide ball fields.
correct.
There was a lot of negotiations left on the table back in the day.
Yes.
But anyway, we're here today and we have, yes, we're here today and we're just trying to move forward.
Tell you what, we spent a lot of money in Aston to create a ball field,
It's not used.
and it's never been used, and all that happens is it just keeps growing weeds, and then and of course stones tend to come up through it. So we couldn't even use it for soccer simply because slide tackle people would be ripping this.
I agree with you
So
too.
you
I mean,
That happens.
because all of the children are on virtual, on virtual headsets, playing baseball and anything else and going other places. They are.
All right, are we ready to get to numbers?
Yes.
I know you're gonna.
Yeah. You anymore, because it's only 45 minutes.
I know you have more numbers to go over this afternoon with your budget, so.
Yes.
All right, let's get to slide 14. So I'm gonna start with municipal. I'm gonna step you through on each of them. Basically, obviously, the report's gonna have more detail into what makes up existing and planned. But you can see here the value of the existing, like I mentioned, we developed that basically taking your asset listing, we trend it forward. Building costs are trended forward with indices. It's called the engineering news record indice. We use construction costs and building cost indexes for buildings. For other assets, we use the CPI. So, like vehicles and those are brought forward with a CPI number versus and other equipment that would be in your buildings would be based on CPI to trend it forward. And then because they're not new, we have to depreciate it. So that first number would be existing facilities would be a replacement cost new less depreciation number. So you have about $745,000 worth of existing municipal facilities that are included in here. The planned facilities, again, that municipal complex is kind of driving that number, but we add that in. We look at then the total service population anticipated in 2035. So that's made up of residents as well as we do a weighting factor for the businesses. So we look at number of employees, we put a factor on those employees to come up with basically kind of a service population that we're talking, or a functional population. To come up with an allocation per resident. So for this case, per resident, it would be $1,480.90 would be the maximum that justified that you could collect currently with this. And again, so per resident is 1480. Like I said, we do a allocation per worker because workers aren't here full time, so theirs is lower. So theirs is we do a factor of 0.31, which is based on number of hours, typical work week, those type of things to come up with that factor. So they would be 459.08. We go to the next slide.
Well, what she's
Sure.
doing is people that work aren't gonna use the facilities as often.
So,
So my
right.
question to you then is, do you subtract that then from the higher figure?
No, so,
What do you do
so,
with that figure?
so you use that to determine the commercial impact fee based on workers, and then with the residential, you can use that to determine a multifamily home has fewer people, so you use that number, and a regular single family has more people.
So you
that's-
can, so you can add the two.
So right, so you can see here that 1480 that we had per resident. Where our assumption based on your current makeup is you have 2.4, your density per household, per single family household is 2.42 residents. So their fee would basically take that $1,480.90 times the 2.42, which comes out with a base fee of 3,500, and I think that says 83.78. So, and then you do that same process for the multifamily because they have lower residents per household. So that would be multiplied to 1.74 factor. And then what we look at is your commercial, and we're looking at commercial and industrial. You typically have more workers for your commercial properties because again, that's a Publix, that's a a restaurant, that's those different types of things versus industrial. You have a lot more land. There's a lot of times a lot more building square footage per the number of workers that you have because a big industrial building may only have 10 workers, where a Publix may have 50 workers.
Say like contours is landscaping, so a lot of area, but not a lot of people.
Right. So then those are the factors that we would use here. Most of your growth is going to be on the commercial side anyways. So per square foot, they would pay $1.38 based on this maximum. Or we show you also as a per 1,000 square foot, because most of your buildings are going to be at least 1,000 square foot. They would be paying $1,379 for a regular commercial building. If you look at for a household, we're saying their average household size the last 5 years has been 2,400 square foot. So if you look at that and multiply, that would be pretty close to what a single family,
So
they'd be
with
paying
the-
similar to what a single family.
So
pays.
with these numbers, what are you suggesting the total impact fee should be?
No,
So,
there's gonna be 4 different numbers.
Oh, so you're gonna have 4 separate impact
Cor-
fees?
Correct, for this one.
Yeah, for the municipal. I know, I understand that.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
so we're recommending you have, instead of just saying residential is this per square foot, commercial is this per square foot, we're saying for a residential single family, you would charge X amount per dwelling unit. For a multifamily, you would charge the next number. Yeah, you would have commercial when they come in there, if they're a regular commercial building, so not industrial, so that would be again, all your office buildings, restaurants, any of those, a public shopping center, a hair salon, those would all pay based on this commercial rate. And then industrial would be typically, like you have your, like a package plant or you're not gonna have a lot of industrial, but it could be large scale, or,
But this is all predicated on us spending $10 million on a municipal complex.
Well, no. We put this in place now with a pledge that we're gonna use this towards
money.
Right.
a municipal impact fee center.
Yeah.
So when we've collected enough, then we say, okay, we're on the right track to get this money to build it. Now let's build it. So this is preemptive to.
and these are assuming that you're going to use the impact fee, that you're not going to use other tax money, et cetera, for that. So
Right.
the thought is you're going to build it once you have enough of the impact fee money to start a portion of the project. And we've taken out anything that we assumed was grants already. So like I said, the library, we only included 50% of the cost of the library upgrades because we assumed the rest was coming from grant or from the county. So yes, but those numbers are predicated on the fact that you're going to have 10 million, approximately 10 million in construction planned facilities.
And I don't want to say you're you're obliged to use it for the purpose that is assigned to, but you don't have to do that till you get the money. And if council decided to do some slightly different variations of what it wanted on the capital improvement plan for a given category, that's always on the table. It's not like you are promising to do X in a certain amount of time, regardless of the money being in hand. That's not.
And for this municipal, if we,
Period where you have
Not-
to use it.
Not with impact fees.
Yes, you do.
they're,
Is there, what's, Councilor Miles, do you remember what the time period is?
But
It's 10
Do
years.
you remember what the time period is?
no, but what you just said is not correct.
In what?
it's not
In
indefinite.
what aspect, you have to use the money for the purpose for which it was collected.
Correct. Okay, yeah,
It's
And
just
right,
right,
in
you're
that
using-
category. It has to
You
fit within the
can't-
category.
You can't buy police cars using
No,
this.
No, no, no.
and he did, but he didn't
I
say
didn't say
that.
that, right, but
Yeah.
if they did, if there was a variation of a municipal complex that was not called a municipal complex, but still
Right.
fell within this category, that would be allowable.
that's.
Hence
Correct.
the reason it's called municipal facilities,
Right.
and therefore it would encompass.
It-
In fact, you.
It could
You could even
encompass a lot of
works
things.
building.
That's what I was going
Like you
for.
don't have the public works facility in there, but it
It
certainly
could
could
include-
well be put in.
But that was my point is if we didn't do a town hall, but we did other valid things, that's.
Yes,
And this would be, we have to make sure as you're writing up the ordinance and you're, and updating your code, that it's spelled out what type of projects municipal facilities covers.
Right,
You know, so is it gonna cover library? Is it gonna cover anything that could be town hall related? You would want to spell that out. If we decide that we want it to be available to use towards public works facilities, and that you would want to make sure,
That's.
and I can work with the town attorney to make sure that we have all that included in your ordinance, so that you know what's included, like.
Other than not, yeah.
Right.
the verbiage in the ordinance is very important to
Yes.
make sure it's broad enough to cover
Right.
the types of facilities we want.
Right, so that's the problem if we did like, I'm just saying sanitation, I know you're not gonna do that, but then that could only be used for sanitation.
Right.
Where this, because it's a broader, if
Right.
we've made sure, if we make sure we identify it correctly and define it correctly in your code. It's a lot broader on how you, again, it's supposed to be for expansion related projects. It's not just for renewal and replacement. It's not just because. You need a new roof on this building, so you decided you're gonna use the impact fee for
so
that.
if you
That's
did
not
a
what it's for.
municipal complex and it consisted of town hall and the police department, and then you did the library separately, you'd be okay.
Yeah, but you would do the police
have the police
department out of the
department.
police
Right.
impact
Yeah.
fees.
Right,
Right, and you could split those costs.
Sir,
that's a municipal complex.
it's still a municipal facility.
Ideally, though, you'd probably have the police impact fee chip in for some
Right.
portion of it.
Yes,
I'm saying you have that flexibility to do that.
Yes.
Yes, but you could come back and say, well, they're taking up 25%
Right,
of the building.
right, so
You're
here's.
gonna use
their
police impact fee. I
portion.
mean, you have a little bit of leeway in
I mean,
identifying
that's-
how much they're taking up of the building.
That's what Ferries did when they
Yeah.
located their emergency service municipal facility. Both together.
How do I get my water tower done?
They didn't, I don't see historical.
How-
That's supposed to be included in-
How do we get that done? Is this,
Well,
do we need to have a category of
That's,
historic
not-
something?
you're not
or-
really expanding.
No,
so
we're
that's
not
an impact.
expanding. I'm just like throwing that in there. I know.
Unless we put some offices up there, then that would be an
I
expansion.
don't think that anyone would want to work up there. But the reason I'm really hard and fast on this is because when you go to any other town, you see the water tower is done, and I think that Howey deserves to have their water. We're doing all this other development. The water tower can be seen from the east to west, the north and the south. And what we need to have is that icon that marks our town, like everyone else have their water tower, looking nice and pretty and painted and so forth. I mean, had I been probably on a few councils ago, I probably would have been pressing the developers. Any future developers that come, and maybe they can go, start donating to our water tower fund. Hey, town manager, we can do that, right?
You could still do that.
Water tower fund.
I mean, we could make a water tower fund, pressing developers to chip into it, so
Did we,
getting into a legal
lose the
question.
$250,000 grant because we didn't go with it, or is that still in play?
We lost.
We
that.
lost
Had
that.
to-
It was either.
It was time
Right.
sensitive. We were
Yeah.
approved for it.
But we didn't
but
have the
it
money.
required for us to pony up a matching amount.
Yeah.
And council said no.
If it's any consolation to you, I've got votes for lighting it up for Christmas.
Yeah, but I want it done. We're lighting it up. It looks.
And unfortunately, that's not growth related, so you couldn't use
Yeah, no,
impact fees for that.
I'm thinking about some things
But
on
it's-
how we
it's
can get that
an
done.
asset that you need for your water system. You potentially could put it in water if you needed to upgrade it or renewal and replacement on it because of your water utility. You could have it as part of your water
Yeah.
utility rates,
But
No,
but
it would
you
be-
need some for.
but you can look for
some
grants or
justification for
like-
expansion
right.
of service.
No,
Right.
we need it more for just for the beauty of the town and just like other things can do like the fire truck fund that was raised, right? If we can do it through private donations or, but I would like that to be something we look at seriously, even in the next 2 to 4 years, 4 years to have it done. Well, now that I've made it awkward, I'm sorry. There we go.
So each of these is gonna kind of step through the same process. So we're gonna go through police next. So police did the same thing, existing facilities, costed those out to replacement cost, new, less depreciation. The planned facilities, that comes up with a total system value divided out by that same population, functional population, gives you a cost per capita. That gives us an allocation per resident and a cost allocation per worker. Take it to the next slide. That shows what your maximum you could justify based on this analysis, the maximum fee. However, so you can see that would be about $3,000 for a single family, 2,200 for multifamily, commercial and industrial is
Yeah, and just to compare, because this is existing fee, so the old fee was roughly, well, round numbers, 50 cents a square foot. So a 3,000 square foot home in the old or current system would be a $1,500 impact fee. So this is effectively different, it's apples and oranges with the system, but it's
right.
effectively double for most scenarios.
Right. So if we go to the next slide, like he said, well, we did go back and look at all your homes within the town limits based on information from the property appraiser's office. I looked at basically last 5 year, last 10 year, just to see, and even in that 10-year period, you're about 20. The average home size living area was 2,400 square foot of the homes that you were adding here. So you have some greater than that, some smaller than that, but that was the average. So to compare existing to propose, we look at multiplying that rate for the 2,400 square foot. So you can see for single family, the existing fee would have been about $1,176. Like I said, we just calculated over on the last page that you could charge and justify based on your projects, 3,100. However, you're limited per the statute of an increase no greater than 50%, which would bring you up to $1,764 for your single family residential. The multifamily, the average square footage was about 1,700. So again, we did that same process. And then you can see, so police, previously you had allocated more towards the commercial, your commercial per square foot was actually closer to $1, where your residential was 50 cents. We're not showing that same methodology based on looking at workers and those type of activities. So we're coming up with, again, you're not hitting the maximum, because you can see a maximum 50% would have been for 1,000 square foot would have been a little over almost $1,700. You're not hitting that. So you're not going to be capped on your non-residential, but you are going to be capped on your residential. So since it's 50%, you're going to have to phase the residential increases in over it's not really a 4-year period, it's a 4 equal installments. So you'd start today. So technically, if you do it annually, you're talking a 3-year period. And that's typically, even though the statute doesn't technically say for the 4 time frame annually, but it just says 4 equal installments.
Kind of
Typically
implied.
implied it's annual. So you can see the phase in that we're showing below. To get to the single family, to get up to that 1764, you're going to start with $1,323. Then you would go to 1470, then 1617, and then 1764, similar to phase in the multifamily. And then for the one that is increasing, the commercial, that would have to, because it's only $72.42, but it would need to be phased in over a 2-year or a 2 time frame period. So it's like $36 a year for the first 2 years, and then that would stay up at that 1202.42 thereafter. Anything that's decreasing, you don't have to phase it in. You're supposed to decrease it immediately. So the industrial would go down, and that would go in immediately. We're gonna do the same thing, Parks and Rec. You see the existing facilities. You have a lot, actually, you have more in your existing facilities and it's on the next slide, sorry, for Parks and Rec. You actually have more value in your existing than your proposed. So you've almost already you've put a lot of this in place. So really these people are buying into what you've already put into place with some additional to maintain that level of service. So what Parks is getting to you to as a cost per capita is $1127.55. The different with Parks and Rec is you typically only charge that to your residents. So you're not charging that to businesses, because most of the people that are using your park facilities are residents. So that would stay per resident. So if you go to the next slide, you can see what that would mean, about $2,700 in 1961. Again, this is an existing fee, so now we have to look per statute. What is the 50% maximum that you can go, and are we above that? So if you go to the next slide, you can see we are above what the 50% increase would be. So we're going to be limited by that 50% adjustment. Again, phasing that in, so you can only go up you can only increase it overall by $552 for your single family, and for multifamily by $391. So phasing that in, you see that phase in schedule below. You would go, your first rate would be $1,242. You'd go up to $1,380, then $1,518, and $1,656. So at the end of that 4th installment, you would be up to that total maximum that you could implement, and then similar for multifamily. For mobility, same process. You don't have as much of existing facilities, because again, this is mostly sidewalks and trails. A lot of your current trails have been provided by developer, or at least based on the information I have from your town engineer, have been provided by developers. So you can't recover that as part of, because the town didn't make the investment in that. But to the extent that you did make the investment in sidewalks and trails, that's what's included in those existing facilities. There is again, and I don't know because that was a newer information that was provided, Sean. So I know, I don't know if council has seen that listing that the engineer has prepared.
For the mobility, the sidewalks and things. I
Okay.
mean, they're familiar with the general idea of the trails and things. But I don't think they've seen.
Okay, so this is strictly including the unfunded portion. So again, any new trails that developers are going to help contribute to, we only have included what would be unfunded, meaning not other funding sources, grants, developer contributions, those type of things. So that's the value of the planned facilities for the trails and the sidewalks. Again, dividing it because everybody can partake in that. So, because people could bike to work, they could do that. So, that benefits residents and businesses can benefit from that. So everybody pays into this mobility fee. You can see the cost per capita is $1136.64. So that would be the cost allocation per resident, and then per worker is $352.36. So if you go to your next slide, that shows you, again, using those 4 categories: single family, multifamily, commercial, industrial. Because this is new, you are not limited. This is the maximum fee based on our analysis that you could adopt. So the 2636, 30 for residential single family, the 1895.52 for multifamily, and then a per square footage for commercial, $1.02, which would result for 1,000 square foot building about 1,015.12, and then industrial, the 44 cents per square foot. So the next slide summarizes for the first period right now. If we get this passed sooner, again, we were saying the 90 days, we assumed no later than being effective January 1st. So that's why I have that up there, but that date can change. This is showing you what your first round would be. And so your municipal facilities, it shows you police, parks and rec, and mobility. So for those 4 non-utility impact fees, you can see for a single family household, if this goes, if these rates are adopted, their non-utility impact fee would be not quite $9,000, so $88.99
In the first
45.
go-round.
in the first. Yeah,
I hate to dump on your parade, but look at page 23 for the numbers that are on it, and look at the numbers on page 24. The mobility column under page 24 has got different numbers in it than the base fees on
right.
page 23.
100 and change higher on the.
let me.
Some are higher, some are lower, but they're not the same.
Right.
It's just, I think, you know what, I think I may not have updated this one slide, the actual
Yeah, you-
slide.
You
20,
not-
we changed last night, and I may not have gone back and adjusted that
Right.
one.
That's what I
No,
figured.
but
Yes.
in that sense, the individual sheets are the more updated ones rather than the total sheet.
Is it, yes, which one is correct? The individual sheets?
I would presume the individual sheets.
I would have to go back and check. This was, I know you and I had a discussion last night. I made a couple adjustments after we talked, and I don't,
We'll get that clarified.
yes.
Yeah, let's, wait, the reason
I
I
think-
looked at that.
This mobility, the combined one is the correct one, because I think when we were talking yesterday, Sean, we were at that 26 and we added a couple more
Okay.
projects in there. So I believe it's the 275067 that is.
I think the
I
thing,
can email that to you as soon as I get back
Right.
and just confirm.
the thing that's most important though is gonna be the total column from the standpoint
Yes,
of the, of the person that's paying the bill.
yes.
And that's really high. How does that compare with other communities?
So it is in line with some of the other communities that have recently updated their fees. I think we had compared that to, because Montverde like recently adopted theirs.
Montford, they compared it to Groveland, like Mineola. But I don't remember where each of them stand.
And Montverde's growth is not as rapid as ours.
No. I would say, a better metric probably for us to be looking at would be what Mineola's gone through and Groveland.
Yeah, Mineola and
Well,
Groveland.
and you're basically looking at, if you look at our 3 existing fees on a, pick a 3,000 square foot house, that's 1,500, 1,500, and the fixed water amount of 3,150. So that's a little over $6,000. And in the current scenario, it's not quite 9,000 plus the water fee, which is not in there. So you're going from 6,000 to 12,000. So it's effectively, it's a doubling, at least in that first year.
But how old is that existing?
These have
20
not
years.
been updated in 20 years.
Right, yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
doubling it after 20 years, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, honestly, just from that factor alone, it's not unreasonable.
Yeah, it's you're not out of line, but we can compare you again to some here, and maybe I'd say potentially maybe some in Polk.
Could
Polk
you,
County
could
did-
you put a chart in right after that
Yes.
that compares us with Groveland
Mhm.
and
Mineola.
Mineola? Those I think would be the 2 most comparable.
Sure. Like I said, the only reason we had Mount Vernon is because I know those were updated within the last year. They added the transportation. That was one that was added in there. I think their transportation, which is kind of a mobility fee, is higher than
And,
the
and
town,
it's not
yes.
bad that you would throw Groveland in there. At the last MPO meeting, I learned that FDOT thinks in terms that Howie is actually Groveland. So when we talk with FDOT,
Huh?
they think Groveland.
Just because of the corridors or?
Yeah.
'cause of- Okay.
Yeah,
well,
yeah. So their thought is, oh, no, you're really part of it. For their planning purposes, we're part of Groveland. They don't treat us as a separate group of people right now that need, have their own specialty. Oh, you're part of
It's
Groveland.
interesting since you're gonna cut the 4 lane at 455.
Yeah.
Now, would you like to see, and I can include that table or a table like that in the report, I can include it just in the presentation, or I can have it as a separate handout to just for your information.
Maybe even a separate handout. I mean, it's good to know. I mean, it all depends on what their
Right.
projects are.
And they may not have all the same ones you're looking at proposing here too,
Right,
so that's
right.
what makes it's
Yeah.
somewhat difficult to compare, because if they don't have a municipal and you're adding a municipal, yours is already gonna be,
Or if their town hall's
3,000
paid for,
right.
then, yeah, exactly. Okay.
and we can try to see if we can identify when the last time theirs were updated. Just so that you know, because if you're comparing something that's a 10-year-old rate to a brand new rate, again, just with the construction costs have increased. It's good to know, but it's,
To Councilor Miles's point, if someone comes up and says, wow, these are high, we can say, it's a point of discussion that we can say
Yes.
it's very close to Groveland or Montverde,
Yes.
even though we know it's a little bit apples and oranges.
and again, we're showing you the, on the two that we can show you the maximum, we're putting the maximum in. That does not mean from an economic development standpoint, you may decide we don't want to put in the full maximum for
Yeah, that's
municipal and mobility. Although you're not, I mean, it is high, but that gets embedded into the home price, because that's the developer paying it. And they're paying that to the developer.
If,
So it's
if
not
you
out of
put
line.
Groveland and Mineola in, would we be higher or lower than the two of them?
Do you know?
I don't know off the
Yeah.
top of my head. I know she's pulled that information, but I looked at it quickly yesterday again, but I don't remember just off the top of my head. But I can provide that. We can provide that back to you tomorrow or later today, depending on when I get
Well,
back.
and
to
it's,
this.
but Councilor Miles, at the same time, if Groveland or Mineola has their town hall and fire station and police station done and paid for, and they've revised their impact fees accordingly, and they have no significant capital improvement projects to be funded, then theirs could be a lot lower than
And that's
ours,
why
where we've
it's-
done nothing.
That's why it's difficult to compare that way.
yeah.
There's too many variables.
You just bought a house in Groveland, huh?
Right.
Your impact fees.
And none of those cities is operating out of a
Well, if
big box
we're-
for their town hall.
If we're closer to them, you know.
It's a
then
good argument,
it's-
at least.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
If we're like twice what they are, that would be kind of.
Tavares just did theirs, didn't they? You remember what they were?
I don't know off the top of my head.
You're saying they just redid their
Yeah,
impact
they
fees?
redid their impact fees within the last year, I believe.
I think Tavares is one you
I think
pulled.
Tavares was one I pulled. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll find those, and then at least it'll be a point for discussion for counselors when citizens ask. That
I can get something back to you tomorrow, because I'll make sure if we don't have these other ones that we get them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just have to call and confirm because we can't find it.
We need to do the utility ones and we got 15 minutes
Sure.
left.
So, okay, my
You brought it
delivery
up.
to you would be, I'm gonna confirm on that mobility one, which slide was correct, and I will send you the corrected
Okay,
slide.
thank you, Terry.
Whether it's 23 or 24, I need to correct, I will get that back to you, and I will get you a table showing you what some of the other, I'll just do single family residential, or do you want commercial?
I think if you just pick single family as a
Okay.
point of comparison, is that, yeah,
Okay.
just,
So I'll pull that. I may pull some others just so you can see, and you can, and then Tiffany will try to make sure we have when the last time they were updated, if we can find that easily. If not, we may have to contact them.
okay.
But we can definitely get that back to you. All right, utility. Really, like we talked about on the water side, we have looked at the water because of your projects going forward, although I did find out yesterday that you may not have one of the grant projects, so we can go
Yeah,
back and
the
see
latest
what
state
impact.
appropriations, we did not get approved for, but we had not counted on that in our
Right,
initial
right. I think
calculation.
we had done that since and when you're looking at replacement cost, new less depreciation, what you had in there, because most of your new projects were going to be other funding sources and not the impact fee. Your current impact fee was in line with what we were coming up with. So there, what I do want to check with the town attorney is should we still adopt the current one again and re-adopt it so the starting point is the same as the
Probably
starting
wouldn't
point?
hurt, and then do the annual increase.
Right, but just so that we know that you're starting your 5-year window or 4-year window again, instead of being limited because you haven't updated it in 15 years. So I want to confirm that with her, should we re-adopt it? But really, right now, that current based on the other sources identified to fund some of your for future improvements, that current water per ERU is still adequate. So we aren't recommending any real changes to that one. For the wastewater impact fee, we're again looking at just the collection facilities, and looking at, again, costing. You had a few of your projects on your CIP, that would be upgrades and expansion related to your collection system, a couple of lift station improvements that need to be done. But your current replacement costs for your existing system plus those improvements, that value is almost $1 million. When we look at replacement cost, new less depreciation, how we bring forward wastewater asset costs is we use an indice that's called Handy Whitman. And that basically, they have different indices for different components of your system. And so that's how we trend forward current costs for wastewater. And so that gives us a cost per gallon. Your typical level of service that we could find in your plan was 250 gallons per day is what somebody that's buying wastewater capacity buys from you for a typical single family home. So therefore, that would be approximately $730 for that collection system component of your wastewater. Again, to make sure that we're not limiting you going forward, we would want to make sure in the ordinance that this is clear that this is strictly for the collection component. It is not for a treatment. That would be separate, which is currently paid to another entity, so that you wouldn't, that would be our recommendation. So you don't limit yourself if 3 years from now or 2 years from now, you're all of a sudden owning and running the plant and you will need to add that in. Even though that would be an extraordinary circumstance that you should be able to get past other ways and a demonstrated need, but I'd say you'd want to just cover yourself by making sure that it's understood this is only for the collection component.
Okay.
And then that's really the next slide just takes you into showing you what the two would be, and combining those together. And again, we say that doesn't include the SEAC fee that's paid to Central Lake CDD on the wastewater side. And then for the impact fee implementation, we've already talked about this, but on the next slide, you must provide at least 90 days notice before imposing a new or increased impact fee. So once you pass the ordinance, effective date has to be a minimum of 90 days after that ordinance is passed. And then the other stuff is what you're already doing. You must account for and report impact fee collections and expenditures annually. You have that in your annual comprehensive financial report. It's in the back of that each year, where your town manager signs that. But they can't occur sooner than the issuance of the building permit, so you can't collect them early. And the fee program audits must be performed by a CPA, which again, this is in the back of your annual comprehensive financial report, showing that they've looked at it and that you're submitting an affidavit that gets signed and gets sent to the state. So our next steps are finalize the study. So that's the actual written report. I've gotten some feedback here, so we're going to look at a few of those things and making sure, do we include public works? Is there anything else we need to adjust? Once you do that, we need to have a public hearing where we're going to present the study and the findings. You're going to adopt the report. Once you've adopted the report, then you can have 2 public hearings to adopt the ordinance. And then
One at the
basically
same meeting, hopefully, as the
can
report,
get the same meeting,
yeah.
yes. So again, we need to decide, and if we see what other changes if that's gonna be the last July meeting in the first August, or if it's gonna be both August meetings. But we can talk about that and get that information to you, and then, again, they become effective 90 days after that second. And then questions, and then the last slide is just our disclaimer we have to put in that we're not your financial advisor, and you can hire us as that, but I'm not sitting here today as your financial advisor. It's just disclaimer we have to put in.
Okay, so at this point, I know our time is relatively
Yeah.
limited, but we did want to circle back on particular things to be added to the CIP that Tara will then add into an appropriate impact fee category. So two things in particular, I think that were mentioned were a public works facility and a waterfront improvements, which seems like it would fall under parks, which kind of is at a cap, but we can add it to the
I think
list.
it could be business, commercial, both. I mean, it's gonna be a mixture of both.
Well, but meaning which impact fee does it fall under? Because I mean, to me, the most obvious thing would be parks, but we're capped out with parks, so that's not strategic.
But my thought, mine is
Or is it
commercial.
or
Well-
municipal?
Well, let's see what you've defined. Maybe I need to look in your code and see how you've defined the parks, and what if you've defined certain
I mean,
items that are paid for from your parks.
it's a mixture of both, but I think it would be good if we could begin to look at the lakefront as it's an asset for the town.
Because
So
people put,
how do we look at trying to improve it, maintain it, as opposed to just letting benign neglect take care of it?
so, and here's a thought, usually, depending on which accounting system you're using, culture tends to include, let's say, library and parks as subcategories, but we're splitting out parks over here and libraries under administrative, so that might provide some leeway if we can count non-park related culture under the existing admin fee that we haven't maxed out. That's a new category, but it's a thought. I'm just,
Yeah, I'll
Thinking
be
out
honest with you, I'm a little concerned about adding the building of the new public works. Unless that's more qualified, because I don't want to buy land.
I
don't
don't
wanna buy
think we
land?
need to buy land. I think
I'm
we
not,
have,
no, I don't want to use that 9 acres because that's where I would think the municipal complex would go.
no,
So my question is, how much land do we have here now?
that's where the sewer treatment plant was considered.
which piece are you talking
The
about?
public works, how much area is there
Well,
now?
if we're talking about the water treatment plant, in terms of,
The public works where all their equipment is, how big is that area? How many acres?
3 acres or less, I think.
And is all of that being
Have you
used?
driven down 27 and looked to the right-hand side in downtown Leesburg?
I can drive by there all the time.
Works facility
Yeah.
there.
Sure. And
That's
how big is Leesburg?
about twice the size of what we're going to be.
2 or 3 times. the
Yeah.
size. It's weird.
Okay.
They'll always be 10 times.
Yeah.
They're-
I know somebody who worked in that facility and is very poorly run, so.
So how are we going to actually put in the municipal complex at least so that it can be a planning tool for us?
Well, again,
Oh,
the
in
municipal
there.
Yeah.
complex was already on the CIP, so that's already in there.
No, in this,
Yes, it's
It's
in
what-
there.
That's already in
In
there,
there.
but Councilor Miles was talking about a public works.
He's talking about a whole.
yeah,
new
correct.
The
So-
municipal facility with town hall, the police
Police.
department, the library, things like that. You don't want to put public works with
Public
those types of things.
One,
You want to put them,
That's
you want to put
my,
them next to the sewer treatment.
yeah, that's my question. My question is are we going to give a memorandum or whatever we need to give to add the public works into our plan?
that's
what
I think that that's something that we should do, at least so that we're planning ahead and not behind. That is, I like it. I think it's I think it's really good. And that's something that we have been speaking about for some time, not only in just this council, but then how do we house,
Is there gonna be-
our
I-
public works?
Is the new water plant?
Not really.
See, I think it's a great idea, Renee, and I have no
There,
problem with
the other
that.
day.
But what she said is, once you put that down, that's what they're gonna expect you to do with any money raised from
Well,
that,
but
correct?
if it's put under administrative and we put public, we increase it by X million and it's under the administrative and the town council pivots and says, you know what, we're gonna repurpose some other land or whatever. We're not really gonna use that extra 3 million we added. That 3 million, by my understanding, could then be used still towards the new town hall or.
Is that correct? You
Yes,
would-
yeah,
you
as
would-
long as it's
You
for
would
something
be
that's expanded
comfortable with
further.
that?
Yes.
Because I'm not against, I mean, I think we are gonna need more room. I just don't know about the land
Right,
acquisition.
well, there was,
For
so
sure.
you get a grant for a portion of it, so now you have that other money to use, as long as it's using
Chip it
towards
in.
expand, now you can't go say. I've collected impact fee for administrative and I'm gonna go use it now for my water and wastewater.
But you could say,
But-
oh, let's add an
but-
EOC
Right,
component.
but
onto it.
components that were, whether it's, additional at the municipal complex, whether it was whatever we've identified as. What the municipal
Right.
facilities
Yeah.
impact fee is going to,
Okay.
particular
Given-
type of
given-
projects it could go for.
So I'm
Given those parameters, I'm okay.
You're good. Okay, great. Because I think that is something that we really need to look at. And I'm thinking of it in the aspect too, is that from my experience, a lot of times in planning and budgeting, if you place it in the budget and you have it written, it now opens the door for you to be able to get grants. I don't know if that's something, but first you want to look at, right, okay, so we're all in a.
And I know Counselor Miles is trying to get out of here for a quick.
Yeah.
Yes, but so is there a consensus for Tara to add into there, and we're gonna add in on the CIP as well, a public works facility amount to be determined by staff and the consultant, but that's to be added in there. Is that a consensus? A.
Yeah,
Yes.
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 Okay.
All in
And-
favor, say aye.
B, is there another component to be added in there for culture, waterfront expansion, something like that?
I
Under,
think you should have something.
and,
in for-
put under a category of administrative if we can, I don't. Or
So
the
yeah, let
fiscal-
us try to take a quick look at that and look at your code.
Yeah, I
and
would look
see-
at it as a municipal facility. If you
Okay.
build some type of structure there, it would be a facility.
Sure.
Kind of like a community center is gonna be a.
I would think that a
very
community
So we'll
center
push
would
it
be
from
a,
the same
so then a
Farm
bench.
Life, but not park, so that we.
Right.
The
Is there a
ideal place
consensus?
to put
Like-
that is right on where the hill is on the south end.
Sure,
Okay.
yeah, go buy it for us.
Okay, so,
We
and
own it
is that
already.
consensus though?
Yeah.
The second point.
And the
We
school
did, but not now.
Is that a consensus on the second point as well?
Yes.
Okay.
But not a band
Is
shell,
that-
right?
I hear
I can
one.
get out of your way.
Well, it could be.
Okay, okay.
I'll be back.
All right,
Good to see you again.
motion to adjourn.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do we need to do that?
I'm just gonna ask one
Hope
clarification.
your back
Do
feels
you
better.
want Me to send you schedules back first showing before I incorporate it into the report, or do you want us to just go ahead and run with?
I would.
Touch base, figure it out, and then put that in the new report.
Yeah, 'cause I could send you just a quick memo that shows here's the changes that it would make to those slides, those tables.
Let's just update it, I think, with the new information. You and I can touch base and.
All right, sounds good.
Oh,
There's a thing to push in underneath it.
Yeah.
And thank you for letting me sit down.
Thank you, Tara.
Yeah.
Anything else from council? Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Tim, second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
That's better. Thank
We
you.
are-
I mean, I'd
There's
like.
something kind of
59.
a little.
I've done that before and
Go right and go.
going right over it. And you quick it up, hope nobody's.
The,
Lunch in the back for anyone who's.
the presentation.
What your wires?
Came out right.
Yeah, I'm
And,
waiting for my
I
laptop.
tell you this.
Fine.
When-
Yeah.
when it comes to-
Thank you, sir.